a terrific playing career, even on top of the fact that he's an outstanding broadcaster, I do believe. Nice flex. His Emmy Award is behind him here in support of Youth Inc. and another season on NFL on Fox. Ladies and gentlemen, Greg Olsen back on the program.
Yes.
How are you, Greg?
Thank you, Rich. There's actually two. I didn't do a very good job framing them, so humble brag.
I didn't mean to short you.
Attaboy.
I didn't mean to short you, Greg. Good to see you, man. How you been? All good? Ready to roll?
It's good to see you, always.
Ready to roll?
Everything's great.
Ready to roll. Here we go, man. Your first game for Fox is what? What are you doing for Fox first?
Yep, I got San Francisco out in Seattle. So two good storylines, two good teams.
Awesome.
Obviously a lot of, the Sam Darnold era in Seattle kicks off. The rebirth of San Francisco, getting their guys back, hopefully healthy and a little bit more like we're accustomed to. So I think first game now in the post-Purdy, he's got the big contract. So I think there's a lot of really fun storylines going into that game. Two teams that are at least in the mix to say who can catch Philadelphia. Obviously, Philadelphia looks like the runaway, at least clear-cut favorite to start the season in the NFC. And I think both San Francisco and Seattle are in that mix of teams that are on their heels, but think they can go compete for a conference championship.
Yeah, I just started the show, Greg, with my annual list of shrug emoji teams, which is don't know. They could be great. They could be less than. And I did put San Francisco at the top at the list of number 2 overall because I did see what happened last year, and I know there was injury all over the place at so many important positions. But I don't know if the Niners are going to automatically just roll it out with Salah and more healthy players than last year, even though Ayuk's out for the foreseeable future, that they're just going to roll it out and be another 12-win team this year. I wonder what your 2 cents are on that subject matter, Greg.
Yeah, it's crazy to think, prior to last season, the assumption was the 49ers were going to be in the running to make the Super Bowl, to be in the running to at least play in a conference championship game. It felt like year in and year out for a long time, kind of in that post-McCaffrey trade era. They were arguably the best team in football, or at least in the mix every single year, fell short a couple times. But last year, it really was the injuries, and I think every team can make that case. Dallas can say the same thing. I mean, it's not an excuse in the league. It is a reality of the league where if you lose, everyone's going to lose guys. There is an attrition element to the NFL that's just baked into the product. But so much of the luck of the season is, okay, we're going to lose guys, but who do we lose? Not all injuries are created equal. That's kind of there's just the reality and the kind of harshness of the NFL. And, I think going into this year, Shanahan's got to do a great job going in, understanding I'm not going to have Ayuk. Debo's no longer here. All right, how do we build this around McCaffrey, who from everyone said in training camp is loaded, looks exactly like the McCaffrey we remember prior to some of the injuries of last year, and obviously Kittle. So he's got those 2 pieces. How does he use Purdy? How does he use his strengths as both a play action guy and a pocket guy? Build that system around them. Pearsall, now in his second year, the first-round pick from last year. Get Ayuk back at some point in the future. Hope this is probably something for San Francisco. The idea is get back to playing great defense. You mentioned Salah coming back as the defensive coordinator when he was there years ago. They were one of the best units in the league. Can they play really good defense? Fred Warner is one of the best defensive players in the league. Can they hold it down, get healthy on offense, and build as the season goes and be there at the end? They've got the coach. They've got the pieces. Do they have the depth in the entire roster? Obviously, time will tell.
Well, another featured game you and Joe Davis are calling is the game in Ireland, which is going to be off the charts, man. I mean, what a scene that will be between the Vikings and the Steelers. The Rooney family, the patriarch once upon a time being our ambassador to Ireland. And then there's an O'Connell coaching a McCarthy going to Ireland. And it's all set up for you. But the Vikings were at the top of my shrug emoji list just because of this quarterback. And then and Chris was pushing for the Steelers to be on that list. What are your levels of expectation for the 2 teams that you are going to see in Ireland in Week 4 on Fox and NFL Network as well, Greg?
Yeah, so and the NFL schedule makers definitely know what they're doing, right? You laid it out so perfectly. And when that game was picked, Rodgers hadn't officially, there was a lot of rumor and speculation, but Aaron hadn't signed with Pittsburgh just yet. So that's even an added, obviously, element in the storyline of of Rodgers in Pittsburgh. So starting with Pittsburgh, obviously they're a perennial playoff team. The job that Tomlin has done, everyone knows about his track record of winning records and that streak and whatnot. They're going to play really good defense. They're going to have guys that can get after you on the defensive side of the ball. They've been trying to figure out, okay, what does this quarterback situation look like? They've tried a numerous amount of guys. They've gone veteran last year with Russ. Now they're going veteran again with Aaron. I think people don't appreciate. I think people think Aaron's time in New York was probably worse than it actually was. I know the first year obviously was a huge expectations and he didn't make it very far, and that was unfortunate. He was not nearly as bad as everyone thinks he was last year. I think he was less good on the Aaron Rodgers scale of expectations, which I think for most quarterbacks playing, they would have taken his season last year. I think there was a lot of things going on in New York with the Jets that were bigger problems than Aaron. I think a motivated Aaron Rodgers, a guy looking to say, okay, I know I'm on my, I'm moving around a little bit, bouncing around the league and late in my career, but I'm still the dude. I'm still an MVP and I can go still carry an offense. I think that's a dangerous proposition as they piece that thing together. Obviously, DK Metcalf and some of those pieces. On the other side, I think Minnesota is really fascinating. I think they caught the league by storm last year. Sam Darnold resurrected his career. They let him walk in free agency, obviously now out in Seattle. Now they turn it over to the first round pick. JJ McCarthy got injured early on last year, which really opened the door for Sam to take that job. And obviously he ran with it. If I'm taking from a small pool of coaches, Rich, in the league, that I say, okay, I get a coach's draft. And by the way, you got to get your horse to run a little faster.
Tell me about it, man. It's so friggin' it's too on the nose brand, man. But I understand. Thank you.
Let's just say if there was a coaching draft picking 18th, you're not going to get Kevin O'Connell. I think safe to say he would be gone. Nice. So I think he's one of the handful of guys in the league that understands how to scheme schematic advantages for an offense through play calling, how to develop and get the best out of his quarterbacks. He did it with Kirk Cousins, obviously did it with Sam. Can he do it again with JJ McCarthy? And then obviously just his charisma, his ability to coach the entire roster. So I put him in that very small group like a guy like Tomlin. So it has every storyline, every matchup. Both these teams to me are fascinating for the whole season, but of course, the game in Dublin.
Yeah, I'll be on the set on NFL Network doing the studio show, throwing to you guys, and it's just I cannot wait to see that scene. And then the Vikings. I had heard. Sorry, go ahead.
You might know more than me. I had heard, Rich, that the day the tickets went for sale, I don't know exactly the mechanism of how all of that works, but the day they went for sale to the general public, I had heard through someone at the NFL that the queue of like people waiting in there to get access to tickets was like 600,000 people, or like something outrageous. So I think the demand in the city and just the country as a whole is pretty outrageous.
Which team storyline are you most locked in on, Greg? I'm going macro with you here. Obviously, there's 32 teams. All of them have hopes and desires. Not everyone are realistic to end with the ultimate. But which team are you looking forward to following their entire season-long storyline because of the last few months or what you saw from Booth last year? I'll give you the floor on that, Greg.
I think, obviously that's a great question. There's a lot of different storylines going into the season that I think are really fascinating. And as a Fox analyst, obviously we're a very Dallas Cowboys-centric network. Their game is fairly certain it's going to be on our network. To some degree, most weekends. I think what's fascinating about Dallas is I think a lot of people have counted them out coming off last season. Mm-hmm. You talk about injuries in San Francisco, the injury situation in Dallas, between losing Dak and then Micah missing a few games and Deron Bland trying to come back from the foot and Diggs. And I mean, you can go across the board. They lost their top players on that team. They went periods of time where they had none of them on the field for stretches. So I think that is an interesting storyline. How do they get healthy? How do they bounce back? Obviously, they have a new coach. How does that work out with Shoddy? Can Shoddy come in and kind of give them that shot in the arm to give them some juice, that gives them some energy in the post McCarthy era? And then obviously the Micah Parsons is like the cherry on top, right? It's the storyline that maybe everyone didn't see playing out earlier in the offseason, but it's dominated the stories obviously coming out of the training camp, and you see the pictures on the sideline and the body language and whatnot. So I think when you mix that all together with arguably the most popular or the most hated, depending on which side you're on, but the most covered franchise in the league, to have all of those things thrown into a bucket, I think is a pretty fascinating team to follow, if not for the least sake of at least they're entertaining.
Yeah. Greg Olsen here on the Rich Eisen Show. The Youth Inc. podcast launched 2 weeks ago. I see you got the hat, you got the logo, you got it all working. Tom Brady's not a bad way to start a chat. You just had Ryan Day on your podcast yesterday. What is this, and what do you want people to know about it, Greg?
Yeah, it's been a really fun project. It's kind of been in the works for a while. And what we're trying to do, Rich, for anyone who has kids growing up in this youth sports world, it's a very different landscape than any of us, remember it being. There's a lot of decisions. There's a lot of things being done at the early age that didn't used to happen until high school and college. There's specialization, there's training, there's pressures. And we set out as a dad of 3 young kids who grew up in a high school locker room with my dad as a longtime public school football coach for 40 years. This was something that I felt struggling as a dad, that I didn't have all the answers, but there's a lot of people out there that have really unique perspectives. And whether they're, some of the greatest athletes of all time, like you said, in Tom Brady, not only his experience growing up that we could draw on, but also now his experience just as a dad and what he's learning raising children, both boys and girls. And then we had Malcolm Gladwell as our second guest. And obviously people are familiar with his work at Outliers and Talking with Strangers. I mean, some of the most thought-provoking, thought leader studies in the world of parenting and youth sports and a lot of societal issues in Malcolm. And then, as you said, our next guest is one of the top coaches in all sports, in Ryan Day, and coming off of a national championship, and obviously talking team and culture and roster building. But also he has a son going through the recruiting process. What does that look like on one side of the desk as a coach? But then also he's now sitting on the other side of that desk with his son going through the recruiting process, entering his junior year. So we have a lot of really fun guests coming down to just really try to paint this picture and be a service to families, that they can hopefully draw some insight from people who've been down that road or have really unique perspective on it, and just make their youth sports experience a little bit better.
I love it, man. That's great. Youth.inc is one way to find it. There's an Instagram account at Think as well, and Youth Inc. Sports is a YouTube channel as well. Check it all out. You got it all covered. And speaking of all covered, Greg, there's a new, I guess, one would say, part of the syllabus of Tight End University, and that's how to propose to your girlfriend.
Yeah.
And clearly, were you the one who said, here's what you should do, just surround yourself with flowers? But first things first is have a record-breaking podcast interview with her. Surround yourself with flowers. And then release it a few weeks later. Was that your instruction? Was that behind the scenes of Tight End University for Travis?
It was.
Attaboy.
It was. We had
we
really spent a lot of time just mapping it out, and the color palettes and the florists, and we considered a few different florists, but some of them were super busy. But
yeah.
No, I mean, it obviously that story is probably the number one story in the world right now, and rightfully so. And we've been asked a lot about it. Obviously, got to spend a lot of time with them at TEU. The first time being around them together. I've known Travis for a while, and obviously he and I and George come together every summer for our TEU event that we've done in Nashville. But just spending time around the both of them, they are as genuine as you hear. And I know it's hard for people to believe that you can live in the spotlight and you can be at the level that obviously she is, and now her and Travis are as a unit, but they are as genuine, they are as real, they are as fun to be around as anybody that you would imagine. And to see your friends, to see people that you care for that are really enjoying each other and have found happiness is really all that matters. And it's been nice to obviously get to know him at a deeper level. And obviously I've only spent a limited amount of time with her, but they're obviously happy. And I got a text from my 12-year-old daughter yesterday in all capital letters. The second school got out, Dad, Travis and Taylor are engaged. And word spreads very fast in the middle school girl world. So that was a pretty big day yesterday.
Well, the word spreads fast as well in my oldest son's high school. My oldest son is a diehard Swiftie, Xander. And I didn't hear from him till he got out of school either, which means, Greg, our kids' schools' cell phone plans and making sure they're off screens. Well done. Day one.
Well
because
done.
nothing's bigger than this news for a kid to
Our school
grab a
locks
phone.
our kids' phones up like we're at
like a Chappelle
fancy
show.
wedding.
Got it. I see what you're saying. Yeah. So that at least is working. Where are they registered, Greg? I want to send them something. What do you think? Do we know yet where they're registered?
I don't. I got to figure out where the wedding registry is. I would safe to say that'll be pretty significant.
I imagine so. Maybe it could be Tiffany, and he can get this trophy like this tall. It's made of silver. He's had it before. I don't know if that's something that you can get. Yeah, you know what I mean. I don't know if that's what you get.
I don't have any, so I'm not the guy for that job.
Well, you got those two behind you that are gold. You know.
Hey, you take what you can get.
It's not too bad. Not too bad. All right, so I might not speak with you before the season. I probably won't. Your Super Bowl prediction. Let's go, Greg. Ooh. Let's go.
Wow. Yeah. On the spot.
On the spot.
Wow. I'm not a huge hot take guy. Okay. I'm not a huge go against the grain. I'm just a realist, and I covered a bunch of their games last year. Yep. I said in week 13, 14, whenever I called one of their games at that point, that I thought they were the best team in the league. It turned out to be true. I still think until someone shows me a better roster top to bottom than Philadelphia, I still think they're the team to beat, especially in the NFC. Mm-hmm. I know that's not necessarily a huge shocker pick. I just really, when you look top to bottom of the group that they have, they're young, they're experienced, they have great coaches on both sides of the ball. I think Howie Roseman is as good, if not the best front office guy in the league, with their ability to build volume picks, add a lot of young talent. They don't hit on everything, but they take so many swings. They don't have to bat 1,000. They had just the right veterans, just the right moves. I just think they have a really good understanding and a pulse of why they've been so good over the last couple of years. And I think there's some really interesting contenders there. I don't know if in the NFC there's someone off the top of my head that I say, okay, they start out in front of Philadelphia. And then in the AFC, I think the Chargers are close. I don't think they're there yet. Okay. I think Kansas City, it's still the three-headed race. Kansas City, Buffalo, and Baltimore. Cincinnati's got to figure out their defense, I think, a little bit, and figure out how they're going to, support Burrow a little bit on the other side of the ball. So I think it's the usual suspects. And I know that's boring, and I know that's not real hot take, but I don't know how you pass those rosters and those quarterbacks out of complete nowhere. But the NFL is real. There's injuries, there's surprise. You never know how things play out. But right now, with all rosters intact, I'm just going to stick with the people that have proven year in and year out to be, at the end, they're there.
Yeah, I mean, in the NFC in particular, Greg, if this was smash cut to 1 year ago at this time, we're not going, watch out for Minnesota and Sam Darnold. And this kid, Jaden Daniels, is special. So special they're going to the NFC Championship game. Nobody was saying that. You know what I mean? Like, nobody was saying that. It just does appear that the AFC is what you say. There's the Bills, there's the Ravens, there's the Chiefs, and then there's that fourth seat that does appear to be occupied in the musical chairs by Houston last couple of years. And we'll just see, who winds up in the AFC Championship game. Like, that is the way that you kind of handicap it right now.
Yeah, and then I think teams that are coming there, right? Teams that are on the rise. You got Denver, you got the Chargers. Yep. If Cincinnati, not necessarily on the rise because everyone's familiar with Burrow and they've been to a Super Bowl, but that defense has obviously got to be figured out. Al Golden now taking over as the coordinator, and Hendrickson is holding out, so that it's their best player. So some questions there offensively. Cincinnati will always be good. So there is that next crop. Obviously, Houston and what they've done with CJ now going into year 3. Can they be more like his rookie year and less like last year? So every team has these questions. But it does seem like year in and year out that the conference has run through the same 2 or 3 teams for a couple years. And it's not by accident.
Yeah, and we'll see, again, just to bring it all full circle, what Rodgers looks like with the Steelers when you see him.
Yeah, Pittsburgh's probably one we got to add to that. That's a good point. Yeah.
Good to see you, Greg. Good to see you, man. You be well.
Yeah, it's good to see you.
I always love chatting with you, and I look forward to more down the line. And I look forward to tossing to the booth you and Joe Davis on that Week 4 Ireland game on NFL Network. Good to see you, brother.
Be great.
You got it. Youth
It's always
Inc.
good to see you, Rich.
You bet.
Thanks so much.
You bet. Everybody follow Youth Inc. On online, Instagram, YouTube, and of course for the podcast, Greg Olsen right here on the Rich Eisen Show. Catch the Rich Eisen Show live weekdays from 12 to 3 p.m. Eastern on Roku Sports Channel in the U.S.